Hello, everybody. I want to speak with you for a bit today about how to be an effective servant leader. How to be an effective servant leader. And if you hear shades of Descending into Greatness by Bill Hybels, why, it'll be intentional because I've just finished reading that book, and it has some influence on what I'm about to say. Servant leadership. In the workplace of many ministries, if not most, and other organizations today, there is a lot of frustration, there is a lot of overwork, and there's a lot of discontent. Everywhere you go, you seem to feel it coming up, bubbling up to the surface of things. And in some places, a general malaise bordering on serious morale deficiency. You just can't work at your best with these kinds of things in the environment. So what's the problem? What is missing? I think that what is missing in such corporations and ministries, and it doesn't matter if it's a secular corporation or a church or a ministry like this one, like mine. What's missing is a sense of a deep spiritual connection with our work. A connection that transitions position, power, or pay. A connection that earlier generations seem to have, but which is largely lost today. In a nutshell, it's the sense that my work, my ministry, is an expression of my spiritual relationship with God. Most folks have their work and then their relationship with God. My work isn't something that I do alongside my spirituality. It's an essential expression of my spirituality. My work and my worship aren't two different things, but they blend together in a single whole. One is the tangible and concrete expression of the other one. My work is the outflow on the horizontal level of my worship on the vertical. My worship is the ocean where I meet with God, and my work is the river where I take that resultant consequence into my everyday world. So, a major question that we need to ask ourselves when we talk about our life's vocation, and especially young people who have not yet made that final choice, is this: how does my spiritual life find real, genuine expression in my everyday work? How does my spiritual life influence my attitude about my work, my relationships within my work, with employees, with peers, with customers, with vendors, and so on? This is quite a question. Now, I'm not here to give an altar call or a pep talk. I'm not here to say, now let's all be spiritual at work and things will go better. This is not a gimmick or a technique. It's not even a process. It's a conscious choice about how you determine to live your life at work as well as at home. So here's what I want to do. I want to consider 5 ways of behaving that will move you toward being a more effective servant leader in the ministry workplace. 5. Number 1, the first one, is be you. Be you. Let me put that on the board. And I'll put these consecutively on the board as we work with them. Be you. Authentically, genuinely, really you. What does it mean to be you in your workplace? Well, it means to be the same person in every circumstance. Wow. Hold to the same essential values in whatever role you fill. In other words, always be your real self. You can't run hot and cold, right and wrong, black and blue, or you'll wind up black and blue. So live that when folks read your obituary and talk about you, they'll have to say one thing about him, one thing about her: she was for real. John Maxwell put it like this. He said, when I teach leadership seminars, I field a lot of questions about vision. He said, invariably, someone will come up to me during a break, give me a brief description of an evolving vision, and then ask me this question, he says. Do you think my people will buy into my vision? And he says, my response is always the same. First, tell me this, he says. Do your people buy into you? Do your people buy into you? And he went on to say, many of us approach vision casting backwards. We believe that if the cause is good and great, noble and right, people will automatically buy in and follow. But that's not how leadership works. People don't follow worthy causes. They follow worthy leaders. So before you can get somebody to believe in your vision, they've got to, first of all, believe in you. Every message that people receive is filtered through the messenger who brings it. So, number 1, the first behavior that'll make you an effective servant leader is be you, the real you, and the real you consistently. What about number 2? The second one is this: be you, but also be vulnerable. Vulnerable. We don't like that word. Not in 21st century America, and Europe, and Asia, and Africa. We don't like it anywhere in the world. I was at a meeting where there was a representative of Israel who came and gave a talk on tourism. We were sitting in Jerusalem, and he said tourism is down, and people are losing their jobs and having to go on a non-existent welfare, and they're going hungry. And the president of our touring company was there. And I saw him as he just wept while this man was giving the reports. Of course, he knew all the data ahead of time, but he wept, bringing shock to a lot of us. I'd never seen him cry before, but he cried, genuinely cried. But those tears were real. And he showed us, particularly I saw it for the first time, his real, genuine vulnerability and concern about the people he had been working with for the last 25 to 30 years in the tourism industry. What does being vulnerable mean to you? Wearing your feelings on your sleeve? Sharing your pain at the drop of a hat? Tearing up at a moment's notice? You know, I've learned over the years that these can be techniques. and neither real nor vulnerable, but manipulative, witchcraft, if you will. No, being vulnerable means being honest with your feelings in the context of your work. I mean, if you feel it, it's okay for it to come out, up to a point, up to a point. It means being open about your doubts or your fears or your concerns regarding some idea or strategy or even some person in the workplace environment. It means being able to admit mistakes and to say, look, I was wrong. Or these three words, the most difficult three words in the English language: I am sorry. Please forgive me. When a leader is vulnerable, I've discovered, it changes the organization's definition of power. Now think with me about this. This is fascinating, but it's true. Power doesn't come from top-down authoritarian control, so that the guy up here has to always be tough, and the guys down here and the gals down here have always got to be terrified. That's not power. That's ridiculous. Power doesn't come from top-down authoritarian control, but it comes from realizing our dependency on each other to fulfill purpose and accomplish tasks. Despite the image of the rugged individual, you know, Rambo and Rocky, we taunt these in this country. We have been raised on a diet of rugged individualism, one against the many. You never succeed at anything in an organization by yourself. It's a myth we need to get rid of. If you're part of a team and you succeed but the team fails, you failed. There's no room for Rambo in a team. When a leader is vulnerable, it also enables the organization to accept anger without being intimidated by it. If people are allowed, you see, to verbally express anger without fear of immediate retribution, they will. They'll express it verbally. And in the meantime, they'll grow in their commitment to the purpose of the organization. You see, expressing anger verbally is a whole lot better than expressing it non-verbally. In the nooks and corners and the crevices of the organism that is your ministry. So, be vulnerable. You can properly express anger, but you cannot act properly if you act in anger. Can I say that again? You can properly express anger, but you cannot act properly if you act in anger. James 1:20 says, the wrath of man worketh not the righteousness of God. You're not going to get to the right solution if you're angry and mad. So you can express it, but don't act on it in surreptitious, underhanded ways. So the second behavior that'll make us better servant leaders is, number one, be you, but number two, be vulnerable. That is, be honest. Be able to say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. Boy, I have seen that just transform tense situations when a leader was able to admit, you know, I just learned something from you. Thank you for that. Things are going to be better. Now the third one, be you, be vulnerable, and be accepting. Now I want to be careful with this one. Be accepting. Acceptance is more important than approval. Did you hear that? Acceptance is more important than approval. If you accept me, whether or not you approve of what I have to offer, I can still work with you. But if because you disapprove of what I have to offer, you don't accept me also, then we'll never be able to accomplish anything together. I believe this is true in friendship, it's true in marriage, it's true in parenting, as well as in the workplace, our ministries, our businesses. Most conflicts at work, I've discovered, are more concerned with style and personality than they are with production and process. The way you do something, not what you're doing. Your attitude in making it happen, not what you're actually making happen. So whole departments or ministries can become dysfunctional unless the art of acceptance is the norm. Now, what is the art of acceptance? How can we make it the norm? Here it is, and it's a key to successful servant leadership. The art of acceptance doesn't mean that you accept everybody's ideas without judgment, without analysis, and without discussion. It doesn't mean that at all. What it means is this: you accept the ideas as valid for discussion and review, and you focus on the ideas themselves, not the person who presented the ideas. So when you're ripping the idea to shreds, the person who presented it is sitting there totally whole and in his right mind and feeling that he is now a part of the analysis. The ministry or the workplace is not an arena for high contact sport, and it's not an arena for war where you get even with people or you get over on people. There are no winners and losers if we're all one team. We all either win or we lose together. So the third behavior for a real servant leader is be accepting of other people. Criticize ideas, not individuals. And then the fourth one. And the fourth behavior of effective servant leaders is be present. Be present. Well, how can you be on a team and not be present? I see it every day. You're there, but you're not there. I can see you, but really you're somewhere else. See, being present is not just being there physically. It's having your whole self available at all times. Your whole self available to yourself, first and foremost. That is, you're acting in your best self. You've got your best values and your best effort is on the table. You're not just slopping around, not just passing time, wishing you were somewhere different. And then your whole self is available to others as you respond to problems and issues and strategies of team members, clients, or vendors. You're there for them, and they know you're giving it your best shot. Now that's being present. Being present happens when other team members see you solid, strong, and centered on the issue at hand. No matter what the crisis is, you're in it, and you're with them. It'll make them more confident and more assured in their own contributions to the ministry. But if they see you stressed out, short-tempered, distracted, haggard, only half there, then they become less sure and less solid, less stable. Are we going to have to come back and revisit this whole thing because he wasn't really here? And then everything suffers in the process. So be present. Stay on target. Stay on top of the situation, not under it. And this has a lot of implications, which I won't go into, but be rested when you come to the task. Don't come haggard and worn out and spent somewhere else on something else. Stay on target. Be present. Now, finally, the fifth behavior of the effective servant leader is be useful. Be useful. Here they are now. Be you. Be you. Be vulnerable. Be accepting. Be present. And now be useful. My mother had a favorite expression. I heard it almost every day. She'd say, make yourself useful, not just ornamental around here. I'll never forget that. The most important thing you can be as a leader is useful to those you lead. Making yourself useful to those who work with you and for you is the highest act of leadership. You're serving your leaders. One of the primary tasks of a leader is to make sure his people get the resources they need to creatively and effectively do their job. To be an effective servant leader, you must think of yourself as their principal resource. Now, wait a minute. This is a real paradigm shift for most folks. They worked hard to get to the top and be the boss and to have people serve them. Now I stand here and tell them that if they're to be effective in what they do, they will descend into greatness and become the servant of those they lead. That's exactly right. Hybels got it right. A wise leader once said, and this is Bill Hybels himself, in the book, Descending into Greatness, he said, when they asked me to be president of my organization, I started at the top. But thankfully, I've been successful enough to work my way down ever since. Incredible. Captures it. Now let me conclude this with 5 things I believe about leadership. I know I'm introducing something that's not quite on target in the conclusion, and they teach us that's the wrong thing to do, but I've got to get these 5 things said. Here they are. They really do put a bow on what I've said so far. Leadership is not about controlling people. It's about caring for people and being a resource for them. Caring about them and being a resource for them. Helping them fulfill your mutually determined goals and purposes. Number 2, it's not about being a boss. Leadership is not about being a boss. It's about being present for your people and building a community, indeed a family at work. There's nothing so vicious, nothing so effective, nothing so powerful as a family in fatigues, a family at war. Number 3, Leadership is not about holding on to turf. It's about forming a creative place where people can find fulfillment and meaning in their work. And finally, leadership is not about getting power. It's about giving power to others. Power is like love. The more you try to give it to others, the more it seems to flow naturally back to you. Now let me apply this in about 30 seconds. If you as a leader can be you, the real you, consistently, be vulnerable, not authoritarian, be accepting of people and critical of ideas, be present, that is, be your best for the issues and the people you work with, and finally, be useful, helpful, empowering, and resourceful to those you work with, then you will be an effective servant leader, and you will fulfill the demand that's on your life as a man or woman called of God. God bless you. I'll see you next time.
This has been brought to you by Ron Cottle Ministries. For more information, please call us at 706-256-0100, extension 217, or visit our website, roncottleministries.com.